Hi there, everybody. This is Jeremy Siskind. I am the author of the Jazz Piano Fundamentals series, books 1 and 2, as well as the book Playing Solo Jazz Piano, now in its second edition. And I've had a couple students studying the tune Confirmation lately, and I thought, it's a pretty popular, well-known tune, probably in the top 20 jazz standards that you should learn. So I thought I'd give tips, some of the things that I've been talking about with my students. So I have kind of 4-ish tips for you, and then I figured I'd play Confirmation a little bit so that you could hear some of the things that I might do with it. All right, so tip number 1, and this goes for really any bebop tune, is that it's really important to be able to drum it before you're playing it. Because like the whole idea of a melody like this, in my opinion, is that it could be translated to the drum set. That is it's based on the accents, the shapes of the melody are giving the accents. And so if you can't drum it really dynamically, then you're probably not going to be able to play it very convincingly. So when I say drum, I like to put the, I'll show you, I like to put the key cover down and drum right here. And you don't have to do anything fancy. You could put both hands together. You could, if you're comfortable going between the hands, that's good too. Let's see if we can use this. So I want to see the music. So I'm going to drum Confirmation. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so those are the first 2 A sections of Confirmation. Let's do that one more time for you. So feel free to drum along with me. I might not be doing all of the little 16th note triplet things exactly as they're written, and we'll talk about that in a sec as well. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you're interested, if you kind of enjoy doing that, a next step is actually to just like drum it on the keyboard. So not worry about notes. So the drumming, of course, it lets you kind of feel where the accents are, but I also really just like the feeling of rebound, feeling how am I going to group these notes together? Is it going to be just or is it going to be right? Like using that feeling of rebound. Very different feelings, both as you're drumming and as you're playing it. All right, the more I do this, the more I'm thinking of more things that I have to say. So there's going to be more than 4 tips. That's how this goes. So one of the challenges for some people of playing Confirmation is these little, in the real book, they're written as 16th note triplets. I refer to these as turns. And I really advise people to play through first without the turns. So instead of B flat, C, B flat here, to just play a single B flat and leave these out as you're practicing at first. Because these are ornaments. They're not unlike if you play classical music, a grace note or a trill, which are important, they're beautiful, but ultimately the piece should be able to stand alone without them. And then, in my personal opinion, you should be able to put in or leave out the ornaments kind of wherever you want. To me, they're kind of a part of the tune, but they're the way that Charlie Parker might play this melody, and you don't necessarily have to play it the same way. So before you add all of them in, I would practice. that teaches you how the melody actually goes. It trains your ear, and to a certain degree, it trains your hands and your body. Okay, how do I play this melody? And then you can tuck in those ornaments, right? You can make them truly ornamental. So we can still hear the melody. What I hear is a lot of players getting lost in those ornaments, and I don't hear the melodic line anymore. That's not really the intent. Or worse, it's awful, right? It completely disrupts the melodic line. So make sure that ornaments are truly ornamental, and I would do that, I would accomplish that by practicing without the ornaments first. You know, another place that is, to me, it's more decorative is this, what's written as this low C sharp here. I'm sure Charlie Parker played it, but I consider that like a ghost note, something that's just used to keep time. So I would practice it again first without that. Kind of an outside-in approach to learning this melody. Learn the structure of it first, the kind of overarching melody of it, and then from there, add in all these little details as you so choose. Now, the trickiest part of the melody, you know, and it's such an atypical melody, is in the bridge, right? Especially starting on the E flat minor 7 over here. I play it a little bit differently than is notated here. I'm going to play it the way that I usually play it. So the biggest thing that I would say here, and I think it's kind of interesting to think about, is that to me this is such a gesture. And it's a little bit hard to define what's a gesture versus, I don't know what the opposite of a gesture really is. But to me, what I mean by saying it's a gesture is that I don't really care about hearing the individual notes of this. I don't care about precision, and that's why I'm kind of like, I play it a little differently than it's written. It doesn't really matter. What I want to hear is so if I'm hearing individual notes precise with precision, what does it even say here? Like, to me, that's not the intent. The intent is ga-da-dun-da. And that's why, as I play it, my gesture is ba-da-da-da. It's kind of played in one hand arm motion. There's kind of just like a single impulse. So that you can hopefully just hear the direction, the kind of sound that it's making. And if you listen to the original recording, like that's the feeling that I get from that too. So think in terms of broad, large strokes instead of thinking in terms of individual notes as you play that. Now, in terms of comping, all right, so I'm up to like 4 tips already. In terms of comping, this is a really great time to practice comping in what I like, if I have to choose a name, I call it semi-locked hands comping. Semi-locked hands comping. And what that basically means is in my left hand, instead of thinking of a comping pattern or anything like that, I'm going to think about matching up with important melody notes. Which melody notes are important? Well, it's a little bit subjective. Usually long notes are kind of important. Usually highest and lowest notes are kind of important. Usually big leaps are important. Usually, you know, wherever you might put an accent, that's probably going to be an important melody note. And because this melody is already so rhythmic, I want to create like a match between the left and the right hand. That's not the only way to comp, but I think this is a really good tune to do that with because there's so many different little strands and rhythms to align with in the melody. So definitely not one right answer, but it's kind of fun because at least for me, what happens is that I end up with comping rhythms that I would not usually do. And it really forms this, it's almost like a drummer's taking a snare drum solo and then they're also playing the bass drum. They're adding the bass drum in with certain accents, with certain comps to kind of buttress the snare drum. Okay, so I'm a big fan of using the semi-locked hands comping style here. Now, let's move on to improvisation, and there's two main things that I want to share, I think. The first big one is that, like, this to me is the ultimate tune to practice guide tones, because you can form a smooth guide tone line going through this entire A section. If you're not sure what I mean by guide tones, I've posted some videos, and I'm sure you can find it other places. But basically, the whole idea is that we're forming a smooth melody with just one note per chord. And then we're using that as a basis to improvise. So if we start on the third, we can go from A in the first measure to G in the second measure, F in the third, E flat in the fourth, D in the fifth, C in the sixth, B in the seventh, B flat in the eighth, and that actually leads us back to A again, right? Which is where we started before. So every single measure, we can just step down and we're going to be on either the third or the seventh of each and every chord. And it makes sense because if we look through the measures, it starts with an F chord, then goes to an E chord, then D, then C, then B flat, then A, then G, and then C, which is tritone sub for F sharp. So that works. And so you could probably guess we'll get the same result if we decide to start on the seventh, which I'll do in blue. We'd go from E to D, depending on how you want to treat this, maybe to a C, to a B flat, to an A flat, to a G, to an F sharp, to an F, to an E, and we're back on E. And I know some people are like, it's F6, why not start on the D? And the answer is I just don't care that much, whether it's an F6 or an F7 here. Especially if I'm improvising. I think in terms of chords, the F6 sounds a little bit nicer. In terms of improvising, we get a more interesting guide tone line if we use the E. Let me just demonstrate a couple of solos using these guide tone lines. So first of all, let me play the red one for you. So this is starting on the third. Super smooth, right? Oh, I should really be letting you see what I play. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, super smooth. And because of this consistent guide tone line, we can play these kind of sing-songy little melodies. We can make these sequences so easily here. Starting on the seventh. And I might add a little G7 in here, so we get that motion. And so that was in the third bar after the D minor. You could add a G7 on beat 3 in order to lead to the C minor. So one more time, F major, E half diminished, A7, D minor, C. So we could also improvise from there. I'm realizing now that I forgot to put a C sharp over the A7, but that should be there. Sorry, don't fire me, please. And for those of you who like really know guide tone lines well, no, and I've made a video about getting more creative with guide tone lines. You could also try starting your guide tone lines like on the 9th. And if you do that, you know, you could actually hit a bunch of color tones in your guide tone line. Now, let's revisit this space in measure 3. I thought I was only going to give 4 tips. I'm giving so many tips. So one thing that we could do, I mentioned, is you can add a G7 in this space here, and that's pretty natural and normal. The other thing that I hear people do frequently, and is really fun to play around with, is to use a D flat or C sharp minor 7, because that connects by half step, D minor, C sharp, minor, C minor. And that's a little bit more colorful. So that's a really nice sound too. Okay, cool. So we talked about that. Another thing to remember as you're improvising on confirmation is that the blues is never really that far from this tune. Right? Especially like look at the melody on the B flat 7, that is just using the F blues scale, right? And B flat 7, what is that doing there? That's not the normal 4 chord in F. It is the 4 chord in the blues. Yeah, that's all I have to say. It is the 4 chord in the blues. So even though, at first glance, it's a lot of 2-5-1s, it's not necessarily a bluesy tune, I do recommend using the F blues scale here. It can work almost the entire A section. It gets a little bit awkward on the D minor, but so there I go out of it. So that's, certainly an extreme, but you can see particularly on these measures, C minor 7 to F7, that I'm trying to highlight, but it's coming out very light, to B flat 7. That B flat 7 is really calling out for some blues. So don't forget to play blues there. That is a great option for you. All right, guys, I think that's it for today. Regarding confirmation, I promised I would play a little bit, so I will play a little bit. Here's a couple minutes of me playing confirmation. Let's see how it goes. Let's see what's the best way to do this. I'm just going to leave the chart like this. And then I'll do that. All right. was fun. Thank you for watching. If you watched this long, why don't you comment "It's confirmed" in the comments, and check out my books. If you buy them at jeremysiskind.com, then you get both the PDF and the hard copy when you purchase them. Amazon won't do that for you. No, they won't. And it's a signed copy too. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.